Just 23 kilometers offshore from Japan's devastated Fukushima district, 3 floating wind turbines bob up and down the waves. The biggest turbine, a 7-megawatt Mitsubishi Sea Angel, together with 2 others, comprise the Fukushima offshore demonstration project. The project shows just how far Japan has come in the years since the combined effects of the earthquake and tsunami triggered a chain of events that resulted in a core meltdown at the nuclear power plant. Pre-Fukushima, Japan's dependence on fossil fuels, hydro, and above all nuclear was absolute and non-negotiable. There had been some progress in solar PV, largely due to the fact that several of Japan's powerful electronics giants had moved into solar module manufacturing in the 1990s, but the significant contribution of onshore wind and biomass, let alone offshore wind, was simply a pipe dream. But in March 2011, Japan's energy landscape was flipped upside down. Gone were the country's 48 nuclear reactors forced to shut down, and Japan found itself even more dependent on expensive coal and LNG imports to fuel its power sector. In desperation, the then Japanese Prime Minister Nyato Kan took the first steps towards a proposed transformation of Japan's power sector. By 2020, he said, renewable energy would account for 20% of Japan's power mix, up from 10% in 2010, and almost fully accounting for the 27% contribution nuclear made pre-Fukushima. Moreover, the country's feed-in tariff regime, at that time limited just to solar, would look to be overhauled and expanded to include all technologies. However, recent policy developments are now starting to make the new dawn look a little fragile. Shinzo Abe's government has overseen a pronounced cooling of policy towards renewables, with a series of annual cuts to the FIT programme causing obvious concern in the domestic renewables sector. So, why has the government chosen to pile down solar FIT? Well, they claim the decision is rooted in the falling cost of solar PV installation, an argument that I think has some merit. For example, the cost of residential roof systems alone has fallen by 11% in the past few years. However, more likely, the decision has its roots in the technical difficulties experienced by Japan's 10 electric power companies. Overwhelmed by grid connection applications from solar power plant operators and concerned about integrating the pipeline of approved projects into the grid, 5 stopped taking applications in 2014. The FIT cut also comes against a more worrying backdrop of increasingly political ambivalence towards renewables. Under pressure from the networks and in an effort to wean Japan off fossil fuel imports, Abe's government has opted to de-emphasise the importance of renewables and to restart the country's nuclear power fleet. The question is, does this political backtracking matter, and is the FIT cut going to make a significant impact on Japan's renewable renaissance? Whilst the FIT is an important factor, overall the biggest barrier for renewables in Japan is certainly the grid. Structurally, it's particularly unsuited for the sudden uptake in renewables. Whilst the grid stretches the length and breadth of the archipelago, it's essentially in 2 sections which operate on different frequencies. Eastern Japan, including Tokyo and Fukushima, operate on 50 Hz, while Western Japan, including Kyoto and Osaka, operate on 60 Hz. The 2 grids are connected by 3 converter stations. However, these have a combined capacity of just 1 gigawatt, meaning that significant interconnection between the 2 regions is impossible. For grid operators with a high penetration of reliable renewables, the ability to transfer power over distance is essential for efficient operation. However, renewable power generators face the prospect of operating in a regulatory environment which is framed for the benefit of distribution network owners rather than independent power producers. As a consequence, IPPs have either had their access to the grid restricted or incur very high grid access charges. However, this does not necessarily mean that the renewables growth is going to die back. The need for new, homegrown generation capacity is likely to remain strong, especially if nuclear restart does not go as planned. Overall, the renewables industry may be able to afford some cautious optimism. According to IEA projections, Japan's renewable energy capacity will grow to 115 gigawatts by 2020, up from 77 gigawatts in 2014. The majority of this growth is going to come from solar. The IEA estimates that solar itself will exceed its 2030 targets early, reaching just shy of 60 gigawatts by 2020 and possibly 70 gigawatts if Tokyo succeeds in its quest to liberalise the market. Sadly, the picture is less rosy for onshore wind, which is set to remain impeded by land restrictions and permit issues. Offshore wind growth will depend on Japan's success in commercialising and rolling out floating turbine technology. On that front, the IEA estimates that around 400 megawatts will be in operation by 2020. Bioenergy will grow slightly by 300 megawatts to just shy of 2 gigawatts by 2020, while large-scale geothermal is unlikely to progress significantly. So, while optimism may be the order of the day, there's still some way to go and significant structural, network and support questions remain.